Heresy Press broke onto the publishing scene in 2023 to champion honesty, dissent, and real diversity, refusing to pander to presumed sensitivities in hypothetical readers. Things like the author's age, gender identity, racial affiliation, political orientation, religion, and cancellation status would not factor in, according to the director, Bernard Schweitzer, when he decided what to publish. Only things like literary merit, originality, courage, humor, and intellectual rigor. This was important news to me because, like most of those interested in contemporary literature, I felt that mainstream publishing passed on certain voices, especially when choosing or promoting new talent. Literary fiction and memoir had become a way for editors to demonstrate their progressive politics and their inclusive social views rather than a forum to put new talent on display. And I admired Heresy Press for wanting to rectify that. So far on this channel, I have reviewed 5 Heresy Press titles, 4 of them favorably. I'd say that the director Bernard Schweitzer's literary tastes lean towards social and political satire, while I read more for emotional stimulation. I get the sense that he reads more for intellectual stimulation. Of course, we both read for both, but I think or suspect that ideas matter more to Bernard Schweitzer than they do to me. This belief was more or less confirmed upon reading the 2 short story collections that Heresy Press has put out. They debuted with the collection in 2023, Nothing Sacred, Outspoken Voices in American Fiction, which featured mostly younger, relatively obscure writers. And then their most recent offering, published just this July, is another short story collection, Axe, Stories That Cut Deep, featuring more established writers like Joyce Carol Oates, Chuck Palahniuk, David Sedaris, Juno Diaz, Sherman Alexie, and Alice Walker. I am going to review Nothing Sacred in this video. And then next Thursday, I am going to review Axe. I recommend both collections. Perhaps the writers in Nothing Sacred are hungrier. They're more willing to give it their all. No one's dialing it in, as unfortunately is the case with some of the stories in Axe. On the other hand, in Axe, we see polished, mature talent on display. Real wisdom filtered through fiction. I have read everything in Nothing Sacred except the story summaries in Bernard Schweitzer's prologue. I didn't want to be influenced before reading or before doing this video. If you are like me, then you can stop the video here, you can go read the collection, come back, and we can compare notes. You can see if your ranking matches my ranking, right? And now, Nothing Sacred, story by story, from my least favorite to my most favorite, from 12 to 1. The Optics of Infinity by James Morrow. Morrow edited this collection with Schweitzer. He's the only author whose work is included in both collections. I've included his entry from Axe, the Eighth Sacrament, among the 5 best from that collection, so I know what he can do. His entry from this collection did not cut it for me. It's made up of unsent audio recordings from an AI astrobot attempting to send reports back to Earth as its identity is stolen by a stowaway AI replacement. More than a story, it read to me like an exercise in world building or in technical or scientific wordplay. It's clever funny in a way that I found self-indulgent. Then again, science fiction fans might be enthralled. Night of the Living Baseheads by Tia Genet is about a unapologetically racist government worker who is assigned to psychologically manipulate the arrested civil rights leader Malcolm X, in part with zombies, but ends up being enlightened by Malcolm X's charisma, dignity, and eloquence. I wondered if the dialogue of Malcolm X in the story was culled from his lauded autobiography by Alex Haley, which is constructed of interviews with the man. In the story, the dialogue read stilted. As fiction, I felt the story had too clear of an agenda. Strong racist language gives the story a sheen of boldness, of defying political correctness, but at bottom, I found it conventional, a simplification of how racism might be overcome. The Rise and Fall of Aleksander Bundalo by Mikra Namani read to me like a madman's rant, a kind of experiment in unreliable narration. The protagonist hunts down war criminals who have escaped the authorities, and then he murders them with a perverse kind of glee. The intensity of the writing stood out, but it went on way too long, and it veered off far too often into tangents that held very little relevance or interest for me. Scare quotes, just empty scare quotes, that's the title, by Miguel SyJuco, is a fictional stream of consciousness chronicle by a female Filipino professor and novelist who has said a taboo word during a Zoom discussion. The telling intensifies as the clock ticks down to her public apology, which we get the sense will either humiliate her or will go horribly wrong. The story captures the zeitgeist, at least in academia, of a certain cultural moment that remains in effect, although perhaps to a lesser degree. I have been victim of it, but the story told me nothing new, and the chronicle of injustices never brought the character to life for me. Gates by Stephen Fromm is a gripping and often humorous story about a bunch of retirees living in a gated community who get together to drink cocktails and complain. They decide to assert their authority in the homeowners association to replace an apparently lax security company with a cheaper one, which ends up butting into increasingly more aspects of their lives and imposing rules with a relentless passive-aggressive corporate speak. Excellent. Until the story just stopped. I felt like more juice could have been squeezed out of it. Even so, it is a chilling reminder that safety comes at the cost of freedom. Independence Day by Perez is about two young Cuban-American brothers who are expecting the arrival of their half-brother from Cuba to Miami on July 4th, when the entire circle of family and friends will be there to greet him. The brothers want to celebrate the event with fireworks of legendary power, basically dynamite from Montana. The story captures the vibe of urban kids who grow up hanging out on neighborhood streets and the vernacular of two brothers who love but like to provoke each other. That is the story's greatest accomplishment. I felt that the end was forced, and the character change too, that it was too authorial, but the effectiveness of the voice redeems it. Paul's Ghost by Perez is a beautiful story about unrequited love, homosexual love in this case, between the narrator and a popular hockey star. The story is also in conversation with Willa Cather's famous story, Paul's Case, a must-read for short story lovers, which Perez's story implies is a pioneer piece of gay fiction. You don't need to read Cather's story to enjoy this one, but you will appreciate it more if you do the prep work. Collateral Damage by T.N. Eyer slips into the mind of a successful professional woman whose husband, in her experience a model husband and father to their daughter, is accused of sexual harassment by first one, then two, then three of his co-workers. Like the empty scare quote story from earlier, this one captures a cultural moment, but more effectively. The character's voice, the second person narration, helps. Also, the story is structured very well. The tension keeps escalating. I really felt for this woman, her impotence, her unwavering support for her husband, despite never knowing what actually happened. I kept thinking, how is this story going to be resolved artfully? But T.N. Eyer stays true, and she ends it the only way possible, I think, in limbo. Appalachian Gothic by Joshua Wilson is a kind of fictional anthropological study about a hillbilly social circle based around the moonshiner Shiloh Home Run Summy, a great character with a hilarious, delightfully stylized manner of speaking that had me reading out loud to enjoy the full effect of his voice. The prose is baroque, biblical, difficult to comprehend at times, but in the best of ways, pushing the limits of language. Also, the cast of characters is expertly drawn. The story's final point remains a bit hazy to me, but I think Wilson is trying to say something about what it takes to become a legend. Eulogy by Jonathan Stone is a very short and hilarious story about one tax lawyer sitting in church listening to another tax lawyer give an incredibly frank and revealing eulogy for the wife that he so loved. As a writer, the story made me think about what exactly sears a eulogy or an anecdote or a story into the hearts and minds of listeners and readers. The story presents itself as lighthearted, but it is dead serious. It's playful but profound and does a lot with a little. Personally, I would have cut the final line. See what you think. The Child Star by Michael Robert Liska did an impressive job of making me care about an unlikable, pathetically unself-aware protagonist. A 52-year-old former child star nearly reduced to financial ruin, who brings two borderline underage girls back to his Hollywood mansion to party and to try on lingerie for him and for his sycophant friend. It is a pull no punches, seamless display of point of view as it develops from abject desperation to drug-addled dreams of grandeur. It is about how early stardom might cripple people, divest them of all self-insight. Thrust by Lukas Tallent might be the most consistently moving story in both of Heresy Press's collections and the darkest. It's about this horny, but basically naive, mostly straight college kid who applies to participate in a porn film, successfully auditions, and becomes an instant star as Little Boy Blue, and how this turn of fate creeps into his soul and slowly destroys his family, sex, and emotional lives. Lukas Tallent writes about sex without hang-ups and without overwrought adjectives, but the story's greatest accomplishment is how heartbreakingly Lukas Tallent explores the dynamics of evil, showing how easily the consequences of a thoughtless decision can seduce us past the point of no return. I read the second half of the story with my heart in my throat. And when I finished, I had to find out what else Lukas Tallent had published. Just a few very short stories, but they all have the same aching, lambent appeal. So, tallying up, I enjoyed 8 out of 12 of the stories in Nothing Sacred. That gives it a 666 batting average. Not bad. The collection definitely gives the reader a taste of the talent, the points of view, and the subject matter that mainstream publishing has overlooked and shied away from for a decade or more. I would put money down that Nothing Sacred is as good, as ambitious, and more varied than any Pushcart Prize or Best American Short Stories collection in recent years. More to come next week, folks, as I review Axe, stories that cut deep. Let's see how its batting average measures up against Nothing Sacred's. Short stories galore, baby. A quick reminder, to support the cause, you can always like, comment, or follow, or if my passion and insights about literature make you curious about my own attempts at it, there is always My Half Orange, a story of love and language in Seville, published by Tortoise Books in 2023, about the 10 most transformative years of my life when I moved from New York City to Seville, Spain in 2005, met a local woman, and started a family with her without hardly speaking Spanish. I plan to soon upload an audio version to Substack, Rants from a Foreign Land, John Julius Reel. Follow me there to receive all my updates by email. Thanks, good people.